Hi guys, Mark here from TUFF along with my mate Steve. We're going to talk about GVM upgrades on the Toyota Landcruiser 70 series, 79 series. Both V8s, one's the previous model and then we're going to look at the new model. So Steve, I guess these are pretty expensive vehicles. Why would I spend money on getting a nice Lovells suspension here? Like, what's it going to do for me?
Definitely. So it's good. We get a lot of inquiry on GVM upgrades on these vehicles too. You know, there's multiple different options to look at when looking at GVM upgrades. The Lovells start at the 3900 kilo kit, so which is always a good thing if you don't want to have the tyres changed. However, anything above that, obviously the factory tyres don't have a strong enough sidewall, so we must change those, and then we can do the 4200 kilo GVM upgrade, and then we can up the shocks, you know, if you want to go to that premium range.
That's a gross vehicle mass. That means I can carry more tools, more gear, more drums of oil or whatever in the back of the ute.
That's right. And you know, the difference, you know, from a lot of GVM upgrades out there on the market is Lovells don't compromise the tow capacity on the 3900 kilo kit. So basically what that means for, in an easier way to explain it, so to speak, is the vehicle at 3.9 tonne can still tow 3.5 tonne. So It's a 7400 GCM revision that's done on the vehicle.
GCM being gross combined mass.
That's right.
So I've got my trailer, I've got my car, put them together, this is what I can drag around.
That's right. You combined all up.
Yeah.
With the 4200 kilo kits, the gross combination mass remains exactly the same. So it's 7.4 tonne, we cannot exceed that. But what it does allow is a little bit more weight on the vehicle. You just can't quite tow as much.
I guess the thing too is it's a legal and insurance issue. By the time I put on a proper, good Australian-made bull bar, hopefully, and you tray, your canopy, your camping gear, or if you're a diesel fitter, all your tools.
That's right.
All your 1/2-inch, 3/4-inch drive tools. You could be kind of on the edge there of what you're allowed to carry on the car. God forbid there's an accident, then they're going to start asking questions.
Yeah, it does. It can void insurances. That's one of the biggest things, especially when we're talking $100,000 worth of ute, and then we put in 40,000 worth of accessories in it.
And
to be uninsured,
and the insurance company walks away. Sorry, mate, you overloaded it.
That's right.
That would be very painful.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that's so what is this? What have we set up here with this one in particular?
So in this model here, this one's got the 4.2 tonne GVM upgrade. So basically what that means is this vehicle, as it sits, fully loaded with people in there with a 95 litre fridge full of beer, of course, you've got to have that in there.
Yes.
That it cannot exceed that amount, so to speak. Now, bearing in mind the GCM 7.4 on it, or 7.4 tonne, so if this vehicle weighs at 4,200 kilo, the difference between 39 and 42, obviously that 300 kilos, comes off your towing. So if the vehicle weighs 4,200 kilo, you can only tow 3,200 kilo or 3.2 tonne.
Right on.
So, but you know, you're governed by that. Obviously, it just means if this vehicle's got a 4,200 upgrade but only weighs 39, you can still pull 3.5. So that's the 300 kilo.
So you combine them.
That's right.
Now the other thing, I suppose, when you do upgrade your suspension, and I've put Lovells in my car, is the noticeable difference in the ride of the vehicle. You get onto a bit of gravel, you hit bumps, and I've found that it just tracks a lot nicer on the road.
It does.
Particularly if you get your wheel alignment done properly, and you get your upper control arms sorted.
Yeah, that's right. So this vehicle here has got the 4.2 tonne upgrade. You can see in the front, it's got the heavy duty front coils, obviously to counteract the steel bar rails and steps, and winches and dual batteries and other bits and pieces that you want to put in the vehicle. We've got to make sure that spring rate's correct. Now, one of the biggest things, and just piggybacking off what you say with ride quality, the difference between a Lovells coil and a lot of other coils out there on the market is Lovells build their coils significantly different to anyone else. Now, when I've been through the Lovells factory, I've watched them make it. What happens is the outer sheath of metal. So they say they run for instance, we're working on a 16 mil diameter coil, right?
Yeah.
The outer sheath of the material before it's powder coated is stress cracked.
Yeah, you're telling me that. That's pretty amazing. Real old school way of doing things, but
That's right.
it works.
But it works a treat. So ultimately, when there's no weight on the vehicle, the coil springs is sitting at the the manufactured height, so to speak. But it opens up all the minute little gaps right the way through that coil, which essentially is less metal binding, which gives you a much more comfortable ride.
Yeah.
That's the a
difference.
really good thing that Lovells do, and that gives it the ride quality.
Also, you get your ground clearance. You put a lot of weight in the car, it can sag a little bit, so you're building up your ground clearance, and it will actually give you an increase over standard anyway.
That's right, it is. It's a 50 mil lift or a 2-inch lift, so to speak. But the 50 mil is the basically where it's at. It gives you good, like if you're doing beach driving, gives you the clearance you need. Just stops you bellowing out. If you're crossing the Simpson Desert, same thing. Just keeps your undercarriage up off the sand and just stops you getting bogged, so to speak.
Dragging stuff underneath your car.
That's right, exactly. And it's very important too. Like obviously, when Lovells have done all the testing, they've used in this kit we've got the twin tube shock absorbers. So it's basically a variable stage valve shock. So it's sensitive to the road conditions that it's currently on. So it can alter the valving internally, which basically takes body roll out when the shock's not working too hard, and vice versa. So
I guess the other thing too is that the car companies, OEM, they make a product to a price.
That's right.
So you're not going to end up getting the best suspension available as a standard. It's built for a price.
Definitely, it is.
So it depends on the performance you're looking for.
That's right, exactly. And it's very important too when the GVM upgrade kits are done. Lovells' R&D is second to none, purely for the mere fact is a shock absorber is not only a shock absorber. It also controls what the coil does in a compression state and in a rebound state.
Yeah.
So what it does is, yes, it does absorb your bumps to a point, but again, as weight fluctuates on these vehicles particularly, the shock absorber can control the coil accordingly.
Yeah.
So which is really important with any suspension kit.
So they're working in tandem, the shocky?
Yes, correct.
And the coil.
That's right. Yeah, so they work together.
Okay, so that's a 4200 with the twin tube Lovells kit with a heavy duty spring.
That's
spring
right.
kit.
Yeah.
So
correct.
we look at the other vehicle that we've got in the new model Landcruiser and see a slightly different one.
Yes, that's right.
Let's have a look at that. So here we are with Steve going to technically review a suspension upgrade on the new V8 Landcruiser 70 series / 79 series Ute. So what's the difference in this one? I think it's a 4200 as well. So
Yes.
same
So
GVM,
Same specs.
but it is a different product.
Correct. So we've got a different shock absorber in this one. So this is your premium platinum range. So what the difference is the coils are exactly the same. So obviously to counteract weights to different products on whatever's going to be fitted to the vehicle, but it's complemented with the monotube remote reservoir shock absorber. So essentially what that means is the shock absorber has still got the same gas oil mixture inside, but what it does is the oil actually runs up through to the canister, and then you've got an adjustable canister up here. So you can control the fluctuation of weight really well, especially for vehicles with trays, and then they're towing their caravan, but then they've got a canopy on the back, and then they get home and want to take all their products off. Well, then they can dial the shock back
Bring
to
it
one.
back to one. It goes to 1 to 8, I think, does it?
Correct, that's right. So it's an 8-stage system. So it's a rubber coated braided line as well, so it's very durable. You know, no matter what you throw at it, it's not going to affect it. Really good quality fittings. It's all stainless, of course, so that way it's never going to rust or look horrid. It's got the cooling fin, so it's a little bit like a two-stroke motor, so to speak. So just air cool, so it cools that shock absorber oil really well.
The viscosity of your oil is managed better by the cooling effect and the movement.
Definitely. So it's a really good addition to complement the GVM upgrade as well. So again, like I explained to you in the other one, it's important to have these set correctly too, so that the shock absorber controls the coil as well. You don't want to have all the weight on and then the shock dialed up too hard, because the shock then is not allowing the coil to do what it needs to do, and vice versa, and does put excessive pressure on your shock absorbers. plus you get a really firm ride in the cab as well.
So when we're
very
setting these up, there's a few tricks to these with
Correct.
regard, particularly on the 70 series, and how you set it up with its undercarriage.
Yep.
And also then when you go for your wheel alignment. Can you take us through the things that you really need to watch out if you're getting this done?
Definitely.
With so that those tires are actually toe and they're going correctly. Otherwise, you're going to wear them to hell.
Yeah.
Expensive tires, you don't want to wear them out.
Exactly.
And you want the car. You don't want the car to be dragging to one side. So
Yep.
if you could take us through that step, that's really important when you're setting these up.
Yeah, definitely. So basically, what we do is when we're setting up, we always use the appropriate spring rates from get-go. Again, that'll stops the vehicle's being delivered and the ride quality is horrible.
Yeah.
The vehicles sit too high and people don't like the ride of them.
Yeah.
That's why it's important we set that up. So once you've got the correct suspension kit set up, we then basically plate the vehicle.
So
we do
just on that one, the suspension kit's based on the customer telling us, oh, I'm going to put a steel bar on or an alloy bar, I'm going to put a steel tray on, I'm going to carry this much, and then what we set the spring weight up for is to suit what they carry.
Correct. And majority of the time too, there's been instances out there where we've had clients put 5-post steel bars and winches on the front, but I've still had to use a first stage coil because on the back they're going to do a steel tray, they're going to do 130 litre water tank, we're going to do a canopy on the back, we're doing a lithium dual battery system in the back, they're towing big weight.
Yeah.
Ultimately it's like a seesaw effect. So predominantly you've got to work out exactly majority of the time how much weight you're going to have on the vehicle, which will then dictate the articulation that we get out of the vehicle when we're fitting the suspension to it. So that's why it's very important. So it's not necessarily I'm going to have a steel bar with a winch and a dual battery system on the heaviest coil you can put in it. That's not always the case. That's where a lot of people make
You've
mistakes.
got to balance the front and the back so they're not nose down and nose up. Like a lot of them you see nose up.
Yes, you do. And you put a van on the back of one of these that's got a HD coil in the front, you can see the possums in the trees, but you can't see the dotted lines on the road. What's the point?
Yeah.
And then, becomes problems with dealers with headlights,
steering,
clients saying their headlights aren't on the road and all the rest of it. But it's purely a mis-set-up suspension kit.
That's important to make sure you're getting the right advice, set the spring, get it set up properly.
Definitely. Absolutely, without a doubt. We use Garden City Tire Mechanical in town. They're brilliant for wheel alignments too. They do toe adjustment and caster adjustment on any.
That's interesting because some people don't do. Is it the caster that they don't do?
That's right.
They just get a toe, and it's not quite the same.
That's right.
Paid a bit extra. Don't be a tight ass.
That's right. I call it a toe and go. So basically, it's very important, and that's the difference between a wheel alignment and a wheel alignment too. A toe and go doesn't really affect too much of your handling. You still get that light steering, and you're thinking, oh shivers, has this thing been wheel aligned?
Yeah.
But when the vehicle's set properly, so this tyre is guaranteed to sit dead flat on the road, saves you spending money on tyres.
They always wear out here on the edges.
Yeah, on independent suspension models, which we've got a range down the front, I can show you what we've done on it. But yeah, you wear the outsides of the tyre off, and also it'll wander over the road. It'll just be really light steering all the time. So you've got to constantly control that. And again, who wants to do that?
It's much more tiring when your suspension is wrong. You drive for 2 hours, you feel tired.
Yeah.
Whereas when I've put this setup on my car with the remote raise, it just seems a lot easier to drive.
Yeah, it does. It is much easier.
So with the also with the way we set these up at the bottom with the setting for the
your caster bushes.
Yes.
In the radius arms. Yes. So we do a 2.5 degree offset in those. Because obviously when you lift a vehicle up, your diff rolls.
Yeah.
So it's very important. If we didn't do caster bushes, say in this vehicle and send it out on the road, absolutely dangerous. So basically the steering would be off one side. You'd be constantly trying to hold it in the middle. A bit like a vehicle without upper control arms.
Yes.
Same principle. So what that does is it puts 2.5 degree diff roll back onto the road and gives it
everything
the
up.
Factory handle.
Well, we have seen some cars come in here that they haven't had that done right.
Yes.
And you're going, oh, she's not going to be nice to drive.
Yes, and they've come in and said, look, Steve, can you have a look at what's causing this, why it's happening? And you can pick it. Been doing it for so long, you can pick it, and that's what it is. So, but yeah, it's really important with that. Another thing that I do recommend doing with 70 series, not a lot of people do it, but is doing what they call a caster line kit. So it's basically the kingpin bearings. I've got offset cups in it, so it's an adjustability. So these vehicles, being a solid front, are designed to veer ever so slightly to the left.
Yeah.
When you raise them, it gets worse.
Yeah.
So you kind of need some adjustment there, and these 70 series don't have that adjustment. So we can put those in, and then you can adjust those kingpins, which changes your hub angle, which will put your tyre back in line with the road again. So it's not so aggressive steering left.
I mean, this is the thing about when you are doing a suspension upgrade, and we recommend it strongly for if you want the performance from your vehicle, if you want the better ride, and obviously if you put weight on it, you just get the right advice. Speak to people who know what they're doing, what they're talking about, because there's a lot at stake.
There is.